on Goblin Reddit. Today's story is...
My husband thought he had the perfect plan to leave me with nothing, but when he pretended to lose his memory, he didn't expect me to already know every step of his game. My husband plans to fake a loss of memory so he can leave me without facing any responsibility. I hope this seems as absurd to you as it did to me. I can't believe he thinks I'm that naive. He has come up with a cartoonish plan to escape our marriage without complications. You are probably wondering what kind of toxic relationship we have for my husband to be willing to do all this just to leave. The truth is that our marriage was good. Leaving this aside, I was really happy. The problem lies with him, or perhaps with his attraction to someone else. Let me explain a little more about my situation. I have been married to my inconsiderate husband Jez for almost 5 years. During this time, I have tried hard to be the best possible partner, and I have loved him unconditionally, but apparently my love was not enough. Or I, as a person, was not enough for him. Maybe he just got bored of me, because otherwise there is no explanation for what he is planning to do. I can't express how angry I feel when I think about everything I've done for him and what he's plotting to do to me. If you had asked me how I felt about him just over a week ago, I would have replied that I wanted to spend the rest of my life by his side. Now I'm contemplating how to make him pay for his actions. A radical change. When I decided to marry Jez, many people advised me not to because he wasn't particularly successful. They told me I could find someone better, but I wasn't looking for someone more successful. I wanted to share my life with him. I loved him sincerely, and I showed it every day, doing anything for him. Yes, he has grown as a person. He has changed considerably. He is more successful than he was before we got married, and now he has a much higher income than I do. Maybe that affected his judgment. Maybe, I don't know. Does he think I should be with someone considerably younger? If all this wasn't happening to me personally, I would never have believed that Jez was capable of something like this. He used to be a tender and affectionate husband who made me feel every day that I had made the right decision in marrying him. It all started a few months ago, when I first became suspicious of Jez. I woke up in the middle of the night, which was very unusual for me, because I am a deep sleeper and never wake up until morning. Jez wasn't in bed, so I thought maybe he was in the bathroom, but after a minute I noticed that none of the lights were on. I also heard a distant voice, as if someone were on a phone call. I got up to investigate what was going on. I found my husband lying on the sofa, talking to someone. I couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but I was sure he was talking to a woman because of the tone of her voice. But as soon as I called him, the call ended. I asked him what he was doing, and he explained that someone from work had contacted him about an emergency. I found it suspicious because he rarely receives calls after dinner, and even less so at that time. On the other hand, he was talking on the phone lying on the sofa like a teenager, but Jez explained that everything was under control. I decided not to insist, but I was beginning to suspect that something strange was going on. Anyway, he tried to sound quite convincing. We'd been together for a long time, so naturally he knew exactly what to say to manipulate me. I discussed this with my best friend Yasmin, and she suggested I forget about it, that Jez wasn't the kind of person who would do something like that. I agreed with her and tried to let it go, but my intuition warned me that something wasn't right. Even if I had listened to it, it was too late, because the deception was already underway. A few weeks ago, I lied to Jez. It was a necessary lie. Now that I know the truth, I find it ironic and hypocritical. Jez has always been very jealous, excessively jealous. I've noticed that he almost never allows me to travel with my friends. I go out with them, yes, but Jez hates it when I'm away for several days. A few weeks ago, my friends, including Yasmin, started planning a week-long trip to a place I wanted to visit. I had the money and everything ready, but I knew that, knowing Jez, I would never be able to convince him. But I desperately wanted to go, so I just decided to lie to him. Well, that lie ended up being the reason why I discovered the truth. Isn't life so depressing and ironic at the same time? I told Jez that I had a work trip that I had to attend for almost a week. Jez accepted the explanation without question. Now, I don't usually lie about things like this, only when I consider it necessary, and when I do, I always try to make up for it somehow. So, 2 weeks ago, when I was leaving, I was already thinking about how I could make up for this lie. Then I left with my friends to enjoy a week's trip, but unfortunately it was cut short. About 4 days in, one of our friends had an emergency and most of us decided to return. As almost everyone was returning, Yasmin and I thought, okay, let's go home too. It wasn't as much fun if we weren't all together. On the way back, I was about to call to let my husband know, but Yasmin suggested I didn't. She suggested spending a day with her, as we rarely had that opportunity, and as we were still technically on vacation, I accepted. That night, I was staying at Yasmin's house, and we decided to go out for dinner at a very nice restaurant, quite far from where we live. It is a place that many people from our town go to because it is a certain distance away, but not too far. Obviously, I didn't expect to run into my husband, but as soon as we arrived, I immediately saw him having dinner with a young and very attractive woman. I asked Yasmin to confirm if she saw the same thing I did. She assured me that they were indeed having a romantic and very cheerful dinner, so I took some pictures and called my husband. Jez answered the call right in front of her. He told me he was at home and had ordered Chinese food. I asked him if we could have a video call. He replied that it wasn't necessary and that he wanted me to enjoy my time. I told him that I would be returning home the following day, and he replied that he was looking forward to seeing me because he felt very lonely. He did all this without flinching, which made me think about how many times he would have done the same. Not only was it clear that the woman he was with knew that he was a married man, but it seemed to be something they did regularly. When we returned to Yasmin's house, I drank considerably. Yasmin didn't know what to say either, and the next day I knew what I was going to do. She asked me and I replied that I wouldn't let him get away with it so easily. She also asked me for the photograph I took and said she would try to find out who the girl was. I thanked her and left. When I got home, Jez was his usual loving, attentive self, and I could hardly believe that just 12 hours earlier he had betrayed me. It was amazing how calm this man was. I tried to ask him what he had been up to the night before, just to see his reaction, but he remained completely calm. So I spent the next few days investigating what was really going on. It turns out that Jez is so sure that I will never doubt him that he doesn't even bother to hide the evidence. When I checked his messages, he had a girl saved as assistant too, and he talked openly about how attracted he was to her. He hadn't even deleted the messages. So naturally, I saved everything as evidence. I even found some photographs. They have been dating for over 7 months, and according to the messages, they are both deeply in love. It hurt enormously to see my husband talk about me as if I were a used object that he was already tired of. He called her by an affectionate nickname, but thanks to Yasmin, I discovered that her real name is Scarlett. So for the last few months, Jez has been having an affair with her. He can't wait to leave me. And you're probably wondering, why hasn't he left already? Well, we have a contract that doesn't allow him to just walk away. If he files for divorce, everything is divided 50-50. But if we both agree to separation, we each keep what legally belongs to us, which means I would get nothing from him. And no, there is no infidelity clause in our agreement. We haven't even considered it. So obviously, he wants a divorce by mutual agreement, but he knows that I would never agree simply because he wants to be with someone else. So he spent months working out the perfect plan. You can guess what the plan is from the title of my post. In a few weeks, he intends to pretend that he has lost his memory. He thinks that by doing this, he will be able to convince me to accept the divorce. It seems absurd and comical at the same time. Fortunately, I now know the truth, and he suspects nothing, which gives me a clear advantage. Update 1. Before I tell you how Jez finally set his plan in motion, let me clarify something. Many people say that I deserve Jez's infidelity because I lied to him about my trip with friends and when I returned. I want to be clear. Even before that trip, I suspected that he was cheating on me. I wasn't going to miss an outing with friends because of someone who betrayed me, just because I didn't have hard evidence. I think it was enough evidence to find Jez in the middle of the night casually talking to someone while lying on the sofa. That doesn't look like a work call. All he needed was one of those corded phones to wind him up with his fingers while he said, "No, you hang up first." Anyway, it's been a few weeks since my initial post, and my husband did exactly what he planned to do. Honestly, I didn't expect him to actually carry out his plan. Last time I told you about how my husband wanted to abandon me without giving me any of his money. Honestly, as I mentioned before, I wasn't interested in his money. But I didn't want to let him leave so easily either. That's why I wrote here, and many of you offered me good advice. Thank you for that. Part of me just wanted to put all this behind me and get on with my life. I've always been an independent woman, and I earn enough to live comfortably. The only thing I would really miss, apart from my marriage, would be my home. The house we live in actually belongs to Jez's parents. We were supposed to live there temporarily, but we liked it so much we never moved out. After my publication, I took about a week to decide what to do next. I made the decision to allow Jez to continue with his plan. Yes, if instead of believing that I was naive enough to fall for his trap, I had been honest and expressed my desire to leave, I would have let him go. But if he really went ahead with his ridiculous plan, I would make him regret playing this game with me. That was my decision. Although it hurt deeply to realize that he never cared about me, I wasn't seeking revenge against Jez. I just didn't want to spend another moment with him. But then I reflected and considered that he had no right to do all this and walk away as if nothing had happened. So I waited for him to implement his plan. He already knew all the details, so Yasmin and I met to discuss what I should do. He knew exactly which doctor he was going to use. Yasmin even did some research on the doctor. All I had to do was wait. That week I had a real work trip, so I was away for a few days. We didn't communicate during that time because the relationship between us was not good. There was that detail, the one about his infidelity, something he probably did again during my absence. But this time, when I returned, I found him in bed, recovering from an alleged serious fall, accompanied by one of his friends who told me the whole story. According to him, Jez had fallen and hit his head hard. He was hospitalized for a few days, but nobody wanted to tell me so as not to worry me. As soon as Jez saw me, he pretended not to recognize me. I must admit that I was impressed by how convincing his performance was. I kept insisting that I was his wife, and he kept insisting that he wasn't married. If I didn't know what was really going on, his performance would probably have convinced me. His friend gave me more details about what had happened. He explained that, due to damage in a specific area of the brain, Jez had lost a significant amount of memories, although he retained many others. That the medical professionals were not sure which memories might return or if they would return at all. He warned me that it could take days, months, years, or that he might never recover those memories. He wanted me to accept the possibility that Jez simply could not remember. But he also suggested that we could create new memories together. Jez apologized for not being able to remember me. I can't deny that his performance was convincing, but this whole situation of nobody informing me that my husband was hospitalized is very convenient for him. But if he really has lost his memory, maybe he doesn't remember our marriage agreement. So it wouldn't be a problem if he took me further in the divorce, would it? Update 2. I'm writing to let you know that the divorce proceedings with Jez are progressing quite well. After my last update, I met with Yasmin, and we decided on my strategy. The most logical thing to do was to gather evidence first, so we started with that. Since the supposed accident, Jez has been sleeping in the guest room. He refuses to share a room with me, claiming that it's strange because he doesn't know me. To him, I am still a stranger, even if we were married before. I understood his position and gave him his space. But what he doesn't know is that I installed an audio recorder in that room, recording every conversation he has with his beloved girlfriend. He is so pleased that everything is going according to plan and continues to tell her that she only needs a few more weeks, after which she will be free. He is right to assume that he will gain his freedom, but he cannot imagine the kind of freedom I will grant him. Besides, I already had abundant evidence against Jez's friend, so I decided to talk to him directly. I have recorded conversations between him and my husband, and I doubt he wants to be implicated in an attempted fraud. So Yasmin and I visited the friend, and I asked him to reveal the truth. He continued to pretend he knew nothing, but when I showed him the evidence and threatened him with possible legal consequences, he began to confess. He told me everything that had happened, and I recorded his testimony. After obtaining his statement, I let him go. I assured him that he wouldn't get into trouble, but that's not true. I planned to use his recording as evidence when the time was right. I don't feel guilty about this. What he did was much worse, incomparably worse, than my actions. After completing that part, I felt I should concentrate on Jez. Regarding his supposed condition, my boss allowed me to take a few extra days off, even a week if I needed it, and most days I could work from home. Thanks to this arrangement, I have stayed close to Jez constantly, preventing him from seeing Scarlett. Well, he did see her once, but that was because I deliberately allowed it, to get more evidence. But that's not all I've been doing. I thought that, since I was putting myself through this to expose him, I should also make Jez's life a little more complicated. So every day I made him do activities or eat foods he hated. He thinks I'm doing it to help him regain his memory and remember our relationship. He hates it, but refuses to admit it, which is even funnier. Let's see those vegetables that Jez hates so much, but which are beneficial for the memory. A few days ago, to help him remember, I made Jez get up early and go for a run. Jez really hates running, but he forced himself to do it. He looked absolutely miserable, and I must confess that I enjoyed it enormously. I also prepared fish for him, which he can't stand. But he tried it and commented, maybe my tastes have changed. But maybe, combined with vegetables, it tastes better. I am convinced that he really hated living this situation, but he couldn't admit it. But it wasn't even finished. Yesterday, the moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. Over dinner, I announced that I had something special for him. I explained that I had ordered some special products. A few years ago, Jez had told me which foods he would most hate to eat in his lifetime. I got the second and third on his list of culinary nightmares. It wasn't possible to get the one at the top. I told him that I had bought some delicacies that he adored before he lost his memory, and that perhaps that would help him remember our love. He was willing to try them until he saw the tinned chicken and the ox testicles. He almost ran out of breath and exclaimed, "What is this?" I replied that I loved him and that he should try a bite of each. He considered it for a moment and then said, "All right, I will." He was visibly trembling as he tried to eat. He opened the can of chicken, which looked really unpleasant. Then he almost cried when he tasted the testicle. As soon as he did, he started coughing and ended up throwing up. I said, "I'm so sorry," and he replied, "I don't know why, but I hate this." I'm having so much fun with his fake memory loss that I don't know whether to proceed with the next step or continue taking advantage of this situation. But I know that sooner or later I must end this relationship. Update 3. Exactly 2 weeks have passed, and I have accepted the divorce. I have accepted the divorce in front of Jez, but he has no idea what I have planned for him. In his presence, I have desperately tried to make him remember aspects of our life together, but obviously he has not regained his memory. I think he really enjoyed seeing me trying so hard to win him back because every time I did something for him, he seemed pleased. It was extremely difficult to pretend that I wanted to keep him in my life. To be completely honest, I couldn't wait to eliminate him from my life for good, but I wanted to do it my way, you understand? Jez gradually began to hint to me that he didn't enjoy being with me and subtly suggested that maybe we should separate. Every time he mentioned something similar, I pretended to ignore it because I wanted to hear it directly and unambiguously. I pretended to do everything possible to get him to love me as I supposedly loved him, but he simply couldn't remember anything or feel anything for me. He kept saying that he no longer felt love for me. He even told his parents that he was not comfortable living with me and that he would rather live alone than continue living with me. Yes, his parents are also collaborating with him. I know this because he has had normal conversations with them on some of his calls, as well as with some friends. He has also asked me not to tell anyone about his memory loss because he wanted to wait until he got it back before facing strangers. My in-laws called me and told me that he had also been saying things to them. They know how much Jez means to me, and they simply suggested that we separate for a few weeks to assess how he was feeling. They argued that maybe that way he would remember something. I replied that I would consider it. 2 days ago, Jez told me he had something important to discuss. He explained that it hurt him to see me trying so hard to provoke some feeling in him when he couldn't offer me anything in return. He assured me that he wasn't pushing him and that, if he felt nothing, it wasn't his responsibility. He told me that he couldn't keep hurting me and that he thought there was a better way to handle the situation. He said that, no matter how hard he tried, He couldn't see me as his wife and didn't want to continue living with me. At that point, I started to sob, just so he would believe I was really devastated. He told me he felt that was the best solution under the circumstances, and that he couldn't keep me trapped in a loveless relationship. Ending it would be the right thing for both of us. He proposed divorce, and I replied that I needed time to consider it. He gladly accepted. Today I told him that if he wanted a divorce, I would not oppose it. He reminded me that this was the best option for both of us. And I replied, you know what? Maybe you're right. But he doesn't know that I will grant him the divorce on my terms, not on his. Update 4. Several months have passed, and I must report back to you on what happened during the divorce proceedings. First of all, yes, the divorce went ahead, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to post this update, but a divorce doesn't get finalized in a week. Let's pick up where we left off. A few days after my last update, Jez filed for divorce, and at first, I agreed, making it a divorce by mutual consent. But then, I completely changed the narrative. I informed the judge that Jez had lied and deceived systematically. Jez was paralyzed, unable to believe what he was saying. I accused him of having affected me emotionally with the breakup of our marriage, and then I announced that I had all the evidence necessary to prove it. When I presented all the evidence that I had meticulously compiled, from the audio recordings to the screenshots of the photographs and even his friend's confession, there was little left to argue. Jez seemed completely shocked. He was horrified and couldn't even speak for several minutes. Due to the overwhelming amount of evidence, I was awarded 65% of all assets, exceeding what was established in our initial agreement. Jez was deeply upset with this result. He found me outside the courthouse and questioned how I had found out everything and why I had so much evidence. I replied that apparently I was more perceptive than he thought. He asked me if I knew the whole truth, why I allowed him to continue with this farce instead of simply letting him go. I explained that I didn't want it to be so easy for him to abandon me as if I were something disposable. He assured me that he never intended to hurt me. I replied, "That is precisely what you did." Then he begged me not to proceed in this way. I told him, "This is already decided, like ox testicles." His expression was identical to the one he had that day, as if he were about to vomit. To think that he ate them just to make me believe in his plan, but the only one who ended up swallowing something was him. Before mentioning the rest of the consequences, I believe that not only did the judge impose an additional $15,000 penalty on Jez for his deception, but that his friend, the accomplice, received another $7,000 fine for his participation. Part of the sentence also established the 65-35 split instead of the original 50-50. But on top of that, I also notified his company's human resources department about what he had tried to do. You see, he used all his accumulated vacation time, plus a few extra days, to execute his plan and to consume ox testicles. But if an employee takes extra days off for a scam, isn't it unwise to keep him on the payroll? At least the company has considered it so and has given him notice of dismissal. As I mentioned, I don't think she's really going to miss anything she's lost, if until recently she didn't even remember she had it. I can't help but laugh at the thought of her trying all this and it going completely wrong. Update 5. It seems that in my story, many people suffer from memory loss, because now it is Scarlett who suffers from it. She has forgotten that, once the divorce was final, they could be happy forever. But she ended up forgetting Jez in the arms of another man as soon as the process was completed. What explanation did he give her? I can explain. I have amnesia. I'm only aware of this because this man is a friend of one of my friends, and being single, he can relate to whoever he wants. But if we're talking about other forgetfulness, we should mention Jez's parents, because they have also forgotten that their son was residing on their property, and they have found a new tenant to pay the rent. Jez and I were paying a nominal amount because we stayed there longer than originally planned. But now, without a job, Jez can no longer afford it. It's a house in a nice neighborhood, so the rent is quite high. Even with our combined salaries and the considerable reduction in the price, it was still a significant sum. How fortunate that I am not experiencing memory problems. I see that they can be very problematic. And he was pretending for a whole week. Look at everything he lost as a result.